up, everybody? Welcome to Why We Love Horror 3.0, episode 47. My name is John Maher, and in this direction, Abby Brooks and Aaron Brooks. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. I'm beardless now. I'll just get that out of the way, but I'm still here.
New look.
I like that you had to look at each other to determine if you were doing well.
Yeah, I don't know why we did that. I was trying to let her talk first. We haven't figured out how to start this yet.
This movie, usually we do new releases, like very new. Like either we see things in advance or we see it the week of. This movie's been out. It had a limited release. It's been available on video on demand for a little bit. But everyone that I've spoken to loves this movie. It's made a bunch of top lists already. It's gotten a lot of buzz. But really, I don't see a ton of people like really talking about this movie. So today, we decided to fix that and talk more about that little South Korean gem called Exhuma.
왜 자꾸 애들 꿈에 나오시는 걸까요?
하관이요!
누가 할머니 이기 가지고 있네.
미국에 좀 이상한 집안에 다녀왔거든요. 밑도 끝도 없는 뭐 그냥
부자예요.
시작이 좋네. 한 40년 땀 먹고 살았지만 여기는 도저히 모르겠다. 박재로 시우리한테 뭐 숨기는 거 있죠?
대살구슬 해보죠.
유세차임이 한기가 엄청나네.
아, 그게 무슨 말이야? 파괴됐다니.
애들 다 죽어.
뭐가 나왔다고 거기서. 겁나 험한 게.
Woo! Exhuma. No, I mean, does anyone want to take a crack at doing the synopsis, or should I do it?
You can go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I'd say like just without spoiling much, it really is like two movies. It's we're following a collected assortment of various supernatural paranormal professionals in South Korea. They have varying talents, but they all center around like burial and afterlife. So we have one person who is like he's a feng shui master. He finds places where people should be buried. Then there's a woman who's a shaman and her assistant, and then they also employ a mortician. And this team of four, they're kind of like the South Korean mystery machine folks. They become them just by assembling. But we get like two stories. One of a family that's haunted by an ancestor, and they solve that mystery only to uncover a bigger mystery that kind of unravels a lot of history of the entire Far East. So that's Exhuma. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And not that I would want to see this be two movies, but you do really get two movies worth of stuff in this movie. And not that it even runs long. It just They get it done in just 2 hours and 15 minutes. So it's good.
Yeah.
What are your guys' initial thoughts?
Just really quick. Like I was doing a really quick little research while the trailer was up, and it's just South Korea gets like cinema, like really dark cinema, as we know. Like that's not just breaking any new ground. I understand, but this is been the number one South Korean movie like for the year. Like compared to here, where it's like Inside Out 2 and Deadpool 3, like they're like, no, we're gonna have Exhuma be our number one movie for 7 weeks in a row. I looked up a Variety article. Yeah, like it's just
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just like, and yeah, I get it. Over in South Korea, it did 90 million for its biggest movie. So South Korean cinema, a little smaller, but like right here, it didn't hold anything back. And yeah, this was a movie that I got to see a few weeks ago, just browsing through Shudder, and just I'm glad that we're getting to talk about it tonight. I think that I really like the approach of this movie. I think that a lot of people will bring up, I think, the movies that it gets compared to with recent movies, but I think we'll kind of mention some strengths that I think in some ways make this more accessible than some of those other movies.
Agreed. Abby?
Yeah, no, I think I thought this movie was great. Yeah, like Aaron said, he saw it a little bit ago before the both of us actually, and he said to me, he's like, you really should watch this movie. Like, I really think you would like it a lot. And so that's kind of how I think Aaron kind of pushed for it to be this week's movie. And I'm glad it was. Because I also haven't really heard that many people talking about it. The reviews I've seen on like Letterboxd and all of that are really positive, but I didn't really know what this was besides maybe scrolling through Shudder. So I definitely hope it gets more buzz and like talked about more. I don't know if it will because it came out a little bit ago, but I think it definitely deserves to be talked about and one of the better horror movies of the year.
And we're burying the lead, Choi Min-sik from Old Boy, still showing that he can do the damn thing and do his.
He's the man.
He's the best part of this movie.
Yeah, like not that I'm going to paraphrase my own review of it, but I'll expand on my review. In America, in the last 12 months, in the United States, in the last 12 months, we've gotten like bombarded with like religious horror. It's like Exorcist Believer and Immaculate and The First Omen and The Exorcism and like all this religious horror to the point that like I'm sick of Catholicism and horror. Like, it's so much like you know what it's about before the movie even starts. But on the other side of the coin, I've always found that when I watch, Asian movies about religion, a lot of them are not really accessible. Like I've watched some Thai movies and some Indonesian movies, and even actually we'll go all of Asia because I've seen some Indian movies as well that are that would be like the Exorcist movies of their cultures, and they're really inaccessible at times because they go in assuming that it's for their audience, and they go in assuming that you understand what's going on. Exhuma is the same, but like I said, they weave the exposition in such a way that it doesn't feel like exposition, and you don't feel like an outsider to South Korean culture watching this movie. Maybe because it also partially takes place in the United States a little bit, but like you're never lost, even though it's not the culture, it's not our religion. You're never lost, which is I think that's very, very hard to do, seeing as I've seen so many Asian horror movies in the last 12 months. Like a lot of them don't make sense to me. Okay.
And yeah, just to like expand on that a little bit. I did get to see this twice. I do find that it was helpful to see this twice because even though they do a good job of explaining all of it, it's a lot of information, particularly in the first half of this movie, with the rituals, what the rituals are, what the meaning of the pigs, the symbols, all of the above. There's just a lot to keep track of, and with the families and the lineage. And if you're like, I wasn't as familiar with kind of the history of like Japan within Korea and kind of the historical relationship there and how that comes into play later in the movie. And even though this movie is over 2 hours, it's only 2 hours and 10 minutes. So this movie easily could have been pushing near 3 hours. I think it honestly like does a really good job being efficient with the amount of information it has and taking its time still being 2 hours and 10 minutes. Like that's not that bad for this type of movie, in my opinion. But like it did help to get to see it on a second watch and kind of have some of that information predisposed to me. But even on the first watch, it still didn't affect my enjoyment. So yeah.
2 hours and 10 minutes. If this was a Bollywood movie, it would be like 5 hours long. Just saying. Abby, what do you think about the whole religious, political? Like, there's a lot of religious stuff, a lot of political stuff too, a lot of historical stuff, stuff that none of us would be expected to know out of our back pocket. How did you feel?
Right. And that's kind of, so I think there is a lot of stuff. So I agree with Aaron in like, there's a lot of information that's being given to you, especially in like the beginning. And then there's other information that's being given to you in the quote unquote, like second part of the movie, if you will. And a lot of that is like the history and like, I'll be honest, it's a lot of stuff that kind of went over my head because I'm not a history buff. Like I don't know a lot of, their history and like conflicts that they've had with other countries and that type of thing. But again, I mean, like you said, I think they do a pretty good job of explaining it to the best of their ability without like kind of hand feeding it to you. Again, I think a lot went over my head, but for the most part, I think I pretty much got the gist of what was going on by the end. And I think going back to the whole point of it feeling like it's almost two movies, I think I prefer the beginning half of it, whereas even though there's a lot of information and a lot of like exposition, they're also very smart about what they tell you, and I thought that story was a little bit more interesting. It's kind of before they get into a lot of like the history and like conflict in that, or at least I feel like it was. I feel like I kind of preferred that first half with the family issues a little bit better.
I can see this movie, just because it's the way it is now, being remade as an American movie where like you make the the Koreans are the Americans and the Japanese are Native Americans, and the movie is two parts. Like it's the first story and then it's the second story. I could definitely see that happening. Go ahead, Hollywood. I'll help you write it. I'm pitching it right now. It's it has if you just simply put the Americans and the Native Americans in the place of the Koreans and the Japanese in this movie, you have the same history, and I'm sure we can make it happen. Get at me.
I'll reluctantly watch it like Speak No Evil in a couple weeks.
Right.
Hey, I'm getting great reviews. Anyway,
great.
Crazy.
So did The Flash. So did a lot of shitty movies.
Let's throw up spoilers just so we can kind of get into the stories a little bit. First story is basically, like they say in the trailer, there's a rich family there. The majority of the later generations of the family have migrated to America. They've had a child. The child is what we would call possessed, I guess, or at least very, very haunted. And we find out that there's such a thing called like an ancestral calling, where like a dead relative who is at unrest can disturb generations of their family if something disrespectful has been done to their grave. So that's the first half of the movie. And I found that, as far as like tense, supernatural, like possession movies go, like this hits all the notes in a good way, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely the best part of the movie. Like it just felt like it had a very like straight through line. It was very tense, especially like you kind of see it in the trailer that we showed in the beginning. There's like a whole ritual they do at the grave that they're at, and then they're digging, and it's very suspenseful and like, what are they gonna find? When is something bad gonna happen? Because something bad's gonna happen, or something's gonna get released, or someone's getting possessed, and it does. But I feel like it also happens slowly, and it's done in a very interesting way, I feel.
Yeah. And I also like throughout this movie that it does a good job of kind of combining the spiritual with the scientific and making it very within the real world and believable, for lack of a better word, I guess. And, there's just so many parts in the movie where there was like kind of the battle between like, let's just get this done and doing it the right way. And when you didn't do it the right way, the kind of consequences that came with it and everything like that. And just, it was just a very kind of interesting dialogue throughout the movie. I feel like between the characters trying to work together, and then when the shortcuts are taken, like with the cremation and then the thief, it's just like a very simple like setup ultimately of how it went. And it reminded me of a lot of kind of very unrelated movies throughout it. Like it felt like The Mummy, where they find the tomb and they open the tomb, and it's just like the quest for, it's just in so many. And then like it had like aspects of like Talk to Me, I felt like, with like the generational trauma being like shared through that like psychic realm, but I felt like it was done in such a smarter way. Had like the hereditary elements with like what's passed through you. Is it through like a curse or a haunting or mental illness? Like it's saying all of that without saying that. And I just felt like it because South Korean movies just do it in a less obvious way at some points. It was more enjoyable to see some of these things that have been done in plenty of other movies, but just kind of the approach here I felt like was really expertly done. And it's mostly because of the leads, both Choi Min-sik, and I forget the lead shaman woman's name, but her ritual is just one of the best scenes of the year.
Yeah, Kim Go-eun.
Kim Go-eun, the fire of deception ritual. Kim Go-eun, Bong Jil, her assistant, also great. Like everybody, really great in the movie.
All four of the leads are really good, I think. And I'd say another thing that needs to be hit on is like there's an imperfect human element to it, because like the golden thread, I guess, that ties all the stories together is that like they go to a site that's like legendary amongst grave robbers, and you think it's because the grandfather who was buried there is like a rich royal, but it turns out the grave robbers are actually heroes who are trying to destroy like really haunted sites that were put in Korea on purpose by the Japanese. So the story just keeps unfolding and unfolding on greater levels. But the imperfection of these grave robber types is the reason why the grandfather's spirit gets released and he goes on a rampage, and also why they discover the real thing that's buried in the ground there, which, spoiler, the Japanese, in an effort to win the Sino-Japanese War, planted what they're called like iron spikes throughout Korea, the entirety of Korea, so like weaken the spirit and disrupt the spirit of the land. And there were like these desecrated bodies of samurais, which is freaking crazy. The movie just gets crazy, but it never gets like so crazy that you're like, fuck out of here. It's crazy in like a good way. So like we go from this like Korean, the restless spirit of a dead Korean Japanese loyalist who wants to destroy his whole family, to like an 8-foot tall samurai warrior who goes on a rampage, which is like, sounds crazy that I'm just coming out of my mouth like that, but it's done so perfectly.
Yeah,
it's not campy or anything like that. It's done very seriously, and like the giant samurai turns into a ball of fire and like flies around in the sky. Like it's awesome. It is really cool, and I think that is done really well. That's probably my favorite part of the second half of the movie, honestly. I thought that those effects were really cool. And again, the performances are really great throughout also. Like everybody was really, really good, but that's probably the best part of the second half.
And they beat the samurai with like alchemy. It's like great. Yeah. It's like crazy.
Yeah. And there's just like what I always enjoy in any of like my movies is like stakes, and with this there are huge stakes. It's like a global scale with it. The baby, there's no sense of safety with that baby, which in the American remake there will be the opposite feeling, because you'll be like, that baby's fine.
I thought they were going to kill that baby. Like when all the medical equipment's like going haywire, like, I'm really uncomfortable.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what I like in a movie. I like that experience, throughout. I just love that the deeper they dug, the deeper, weirder it got. We haven't even talked about the fucking snake with the wig that screams. Like, it's just like, that's the only time we have that weird, like, surrealism in the movie, other than, I guess, the flaming ball that travels around the world. Like, but like, yeah, the snake screaming with the wig on, like, that
snake with a human face, and of course the guy kills it by accident. Like you never kill a snake with a human head.
The nicest looking schlubby helper, of course, does it. The fat schlubby guy, always that guy. It's like, oh no, like the Hodor of the group. Like, it's just no. This movie was really good. I really appreciate the tone it kept throughout as well. Like, and it's just like, over and over again, they're all kind of, moments throughout where each one of the members of the Ghostbuster team, for lack of a better term, are trying to kind of shout from their perspective of why their perspective is the most to be listened to, and it gets ignored at a key moment. So it's like, I really enjoy this movie. I've watched it twice now, and I will probably watch it again in the future. Like, it's really, really a solid, I think, future, like, kind of cult classic that people here discover as a cult classic.
I don't even want to call it a cult classic. This should just be respected as like a great. This should be like a Hereditary. It shouldn't be a cult classic.
Yeah.
The people who watch this movie. I think it's also cool. Like, there's positions where everyone's forced at times to like abandon their principles. Like they're all like, listen, when it rains, we don't cremate people. It's bad luck. The spirit will go to hell, like, no matter what. And then like, well, this baby's gonna die. Like, fuck that guy. Cremate the body. I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. That's probably all we can do for now. I think we've talked about this movie. See this movie, but let's get on to what we thought about the movie. Okay, so let's think we talk about this movie. So, what the hell, Abby, you go first this time.
So I really like this movie a lot. I think my negatives for it that couldn't get it as high as the two of you guys is I did think that the movie was a little overly long. I think especially in that second part of the movie, that's where it kind of felt, to me, it felt like it drug a little bit, minus the flaming samurai flying in the sky. It just felt like it overstayed its welcome. But again, all of the performances are really, really good in this. I think so many people should be seeing this movie. It's on Shudder right now. Anybody who has an account should watch it. I gave it 4 stars.
All right. And I'll go next. We'll break up the happy family for a day. Exhuma, for me, like, just on one viewing, it like rocketed like right up to the top of the charts for me. Like, this is like competing with all the movies. It's up there. It's top 3, debatable, definitely, maybe even higher. I have nothing but good things to say about this movie. It's I don't like religious horror movies. I don't like them, but I love this one. 5 out of 5. Aaron?
Yeah. So on either one of my watches, I have the same rating, and it is nearly on that top level for me for the year. It's just below it though. I 4.5 videotapes for me. This is a really great movie, and it just, like, for me, is like I really enjoy the Wailing, Incantation. Those are the 2 movies that are going to be constantly brought up with this movie. Incantation has my favorite ending of the 3 of these, but the rest of Incantation falls into a lot of the problems of this, that we were talking about, with like getting lost in the cultural, like, what is going on elements of it, and it's confusing in a different way. This movie, I think, is confusing and intentional, like you're confused for the right reasons through this movie, or like wondering where it's going. So I just think it's a really good work, and I hope that gets more traction here because it deserves it.
Like we do every week, we're going to cover the Why We Love Horror Challenge now. That's the website. Lowercase r, lowercase l, capital W, lowercase d, capital I. This is a week that I think, given the history of modern horror that most people would dread, it was watch a Blumhouse horror film. I'm sure there's plenty that we haven't seen, but we ended with Aaron, so we'll start with Aaron. Which Blumhouse horror film did you watch?
So I went earlier in their run, of course, because that is when things were nice. And I went with the Bustillo and Murray underwater haunted house joint of the Deep House. This was fun. It wasn't like as like I was hoping the second half would be a little more claustrophobic and I am scared of drowning, and yes, the final segment definitely gets to that, but I was hoping more of the movie would be what the final kind of moments were, but it's still fun. Obviously, if this was just a normal haunted house movie, it would have been a 2.5 or less, but it was underwater, so good job. It worked for me. It was a good build-up. It was fun. And
Julian Maury and Alexander Bustillo, keep making movies, please. Please don't stop. That being said, I also went. I didn't go in the crappy, 2023, 2024 Blumhouse wheelhouse. I went to a movie that I hadn't seen before that answers the age-old question, like, what if my mother-in-law was the protagonist of a movie? So I watched Bingo Hell, which is fun but not great. Richard Brake is in it; he's great, and the lead is great. But it really is just about the devil will come to town and set up a bingo hall that's going to take the souls of all the old folks. And
oh my,
that's about it. That's what happens. Abby?
Well, the Deep House was supposed to be my pick for the week. So, but we also watched Cam, well, kind of. I have 20 minutes left, so Cam can be my pick now, which is also a Blumhouse. And I didn't mind it. I still have 20 minutes left. Just kind of got to a good part in it. So.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know that I couldn't talk about the Deep House.
Cam's great. I love Cam too. These are all decent. Mine's probably the worst out of the three. So like,
Yes.
it's a good week then. All right, well, that'll bring us to the end of the show. If you made it this far in the video, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Go to the Facebook group, Why We Love Horror. That's where we, just let you know what's happening every week. The TikTok is WWL Horror, and every week it's the same old schedule. Mondays versus Wednesdays, special editions. Thursday, you're watching it, Why We Love Horror. And every Friday, Why We Love Horror Trivia. Please stop by, watch all our shows, love all our shows, and we'll see you next time on Why We Love Horror.